Hello and welcome to another episode of Only a Bag in Italy Travel Podcast. I'm Nathaniel Mellor.
And I'm Darcy Melton.
And thank you all so much for joining us again. If this is your first time, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show. We hope you will enjoy it here.
Yeah.
I think this is largely Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band. Anyway.
That was the intro to that song.
So we don't get sued, we're going to continue. And first, because this episode is going to be about Rome, it has a very charming name called Rome Condensed, Revisited, Updated 2025, Post-Jubilee. It's a nightmare. We're working on it. But this essentially is a remake or revamp of our, I feel like we're like one of those episodes, like we're going to remake a show that didn't go over so well. Mm-hmm. But no, this is a remake of our most listened to episode, Rome Condensed, from 2023. The two reasons we wanted to revisit, one is we just wanted to update some of the information, kind of add more to it, make it more viable for 2025 and in the future, especially in this sort of post-COVID, especially because that was just coming out of, not post-COVID, post-Jubilee, especially because that was coming out of COVID. So some of the information there wasn't 100% accurate, I think, or applicable to like 2025, 2026, as well as we've just gotten better at podcasting. So man, we looked at that transcript for that episode and it was a nightmare. We are very chatty Cathys.
Yes, and we still are, but we have gotten better at being a bit more concise. And I think now, 2 years on from that episode, we know a bit more of what you all want to hear, what you need to know, all of that. So this is going to be pretty concise. We're going to hop through all of these important details and keep it at an hour.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
That's the hope. If you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the episode and you'd like to leave us a review, you can do so on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts. Likewise, if you'd like to follow us, we are on Instagram at Only a Bag Podcast. You can follow us there. You can also send us messages there. If you have questions, comments, concerns, questions about your upcoming trip, things that we might have touched on but didn't really go in depth into, anything like that, you can absolutely send us a message on Instagram, or you can send us a message through our website, onlyabag.com. There's a contact page. The website itself is filled with articles. A lot of what we're going to be talking about today is already in the form of an article. So when we say, like, we linked it below, 90% of it will be our own articles. And then the other 10%, especially the other 90%, terrible math, is going to be from like ATAC website if it's Rome Transportation, things like that, more official websites than ours. And then last but not least, if you'd like to support us financially, you can do so. We have a Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/onlyabag. We deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate everyone who has already contributed, who's already sent money, who's donated. You're amazing. You're all amazing for listening and for following. We really appreciate it. And if you'd like to also to donate, at this point, we have nothing to offer in return except for our undying gratitude and love. But yeah, you can do so. Ko-fi, ko-fi.com/onlyabag. So without further ado, let's hop into Rome Condensed, Updated, Revisited 2025 Post-Jubilee.
Incredible.
This is getting worse, I know.
I loved it though.
Thank you.
So before we talk about getting there or any of the other ins and outs of Rome, I want to first talk about safety.
Yes,
because
big one.
Obviously that's a big concern when you're
traveling. Don't go to Rome if you're not safe. Classic.
Yeah. And largely, Rome is a very safe place. Italy is a very safe place to be and to be a tourist. However, that doesn't mean that no crime exists because humans.
True.
But the thing that's most likely to happen as far as crime goes is pickpocketing. Yeah, however, we want to say that often, although pickpocketing is obviously a problem, you might be pickpocketed, it is not likely that you will be violently attacked or that there will be a weapon involved in that pickpocketing. Usually, if you are pickpocketed, I'm saying that word a lot, someone is just going to snatch your bag, swipe your wallet, something like that.
Or even just, exactly, dip their hands in your pocket kind of thing while you're trying to get on a metro or something. On that note, a big area that it happens in tends to be like Termini Station, Rome's major subway/bus station in the middle of the city. Any touristy places like Colosseum, things like that. However, it tends to be the biggest according to statistics and people who travel and people who live in Rome, where someone can make a quick getaway. Mm-hmm. So somebody's getting off a bus while you're getting on, or somebody's getting off the metro while you're getting on, typically is how it is. So that way the doors separate the two of you. That way, if you notice immediately that something's missing, you're not like, for instance, looking around the crowd at the Colosseum going like, wait a second, that person stole my wallet.
And you just see someone like running away and they like, they probably did it.
It's a little easier to assume, I think, there than or even the metro. It's like, it doesn't even matter if somebody gets away, they get away. And I will say, just on a very brief note, that in Venice, you see the signs of like, it will happen kind of thing. Just pay attention. Not like, I mean, because I think it's common to see like pickpocketers will be prosecuted. It's not, I mean, it is very much obviously the same, but because the court dates and all these things are such a long, lengthy process in Italy, there's not a major deterrent against pickpocketing short of like, I mean, a couple of offenses you rack up and then, okay, it might be a bigger issue the next time. But the reason you never see a weapon, or you rarely see a weapon, I should say, is because that adds years onto a prison sentence and makes it like, I think, a felony from a misdemeanor or something like that. But it like leapfrogs you into the next category of big crime, basically. So that is weirdly one of the reasons that it's almost safer. And when you, just as a last note, when you mention safer, it is like both in Europe, Italy's a pretty safe country. It's like one of the safest countries in Europe, but like especially compared to the United States, it's so like the top cities, whether it's by armed robbery, burglary, murder, anything like that. I mean, Italy is nowhere near the rates as the United States. So it is a very much a safer place to go. It's just
but that's also level. Obviously just to put it out there. That's not to discount that crime does happen.
Yeah.
So we're not saying it doesn't, and it's a perfect place, but you are very likely going to be quite safe here as a tourist.
And you will, if it does happen to you, we really, really hope it doesn't. If it does happen, if you get pickpocketed, if somebody steals something, absolutely go to the police. In theory, they should immediately take your statement, make not arrest report, just a incident report. This is especially important if you've lost a passport or a wallet, and I make that, or even a phone, and it's like insured, especially through a credit card company, or maybe if you bought it through, I don't know, Verizon or something like that, and they'll insure it if it's been stolen. You have to make the police report. When you get to a station, sometimes the police will not want to make the report, mainly because it's just a pain for them, I think. And they're just like, I mean, some people say corruption. I don't think it's corruption. It's not like...
And this is all anecdotal. We've never had to
exactly.
make a police report in Italy. But people have said that sometimes police just don't want to do it.
Because they're like, are you sure? Because you're going to have to come back for the court date now, and you're going to have to do this. And it's not about that. It's about the fact that you can't get like a passport replacement usually
you need
without
proof.
Without the police report. And I think even you lost your license once in New York, and you couldn't fly back. But they're like, as long as you get a police report, it doesn't matter that you, I think, lost it like in a metro or something, and somebody actually sent it back to you, which was really nice. But it's just, you need to report it to the police so then you can get on the plane to go back to Savannah. And so that's just, you might hit some resistance going to the police station. Do it anyway. Push through the resistance. Just explain, hey, I also don't want to be here. I'm probably not coming back for the court date in 9 months or 2.5 years or whatever it is, but I need this. So let's just make this go a little quicker. This has been a terrible day for all of us. Let's get to the end of the day, and then let's just get through this. So that's something that happens. And there are some emergency numbers if something even more drastic happens in pickpocketing, because you can absolutely call the police in a pickpocketing, but maybe nothing happens, basically. Like, especially Termini, it's easier to find the police officer.
Yeah, that's the thing. At Termini and at other, major tourist spots, there are often police around on patrol.
Yeah.
So you might be able to just physically find someone, and you might not need to call an emergency number. But if you do, the main Italy and Europe emergency number is 112. If you want to go directly to police, it's 113. If there's some other kind of emergency for fire, you can call 115. And they say for health, but this is like essentially an ambulance, EMTs, it is 118.
Yeah. And I mean, essentially, on the, like, again, insane thing that, so again, health related, I've been thinking if like someone stabbed you in the state, the Termini station or something terrible like that, like it's probably better to call 118 first, get an ambulance away than it is to go. And again,
if you have the wherewithal to do that, yes.
No, but I'm saying this is like, this will be in the media throughout Italy if this happens, to be very clear. In Europe, this would be huge news, but if something really, really bad happens, it is obviously better to and physically bad, like physically harming bad, it's better to call the ambulance first rather than the police, just to, make sure there's an ambulance on the way.
Yeah, but if you can't remember anything else, 112.
Yes. So with that fun
But
note,
I do want to say, just for keeping yourself safe from pickpockets, or not safe, but protecting your belongings from pickpockets, things you can do. Number one, we talked about how this pickpocketing sometimes happens more often at Termini.
Yes,
and part of that is because people can be quite distracted. You're looking at the board when your train's arriving, you're pulling out money, pulling out train cards. You might be a bit more vulnerable just because you're distracted. Whenever you're in a crowd, hold on to your bag. Put your wallets and everything that is important to you in the front of you. Nathaniel and I often travel with a fanny pack.
Yeah.
A bum bag? Bomb bag? Bum bag. What do they call it in
I think it's
Australia?
a bag on your bum.
Okay. Essentially we wear it as a crossbody bag, so you can have your hand on that when you're in a big crowd.
I will say
that's
also helps
when you're most vulnerable.
As a fanny pack to either a crossbody or even as a fanny pack to have your shirt over it, especially if you have like just a button down or something with some room, I guess, because then you can kind of cover up the zippers. Because the biggest thing is just covering up the zippers. And there are stories on that note. There are stories of I know I've been hearing these for like 12 years now. I don't know how accurate any of these stories are, and not just in Italy. Like I first heard them when I was traveling through China, and since then I've heard them for like every country we've been in. But that people walk around with like really sharp knives to like cut your bag and this and that has led to these rise of sort of high security bags, or have like there's an internal metal mesh and things like that. I don't. No one's ever posted a photo of the bag that's been slashed. I've never seen this on any of the subreddits. It just people seem to like know this is a thing, but nobody knows anybody this has happened to. So again, I think it could be the same thing. Nobody wants to walk around with a knife because it seems like, if you get caught, what are you gonna say? No, the knife was just like cut somebody's bag. It wasn't to, not rob them. So it's a whole thing. I don't know how accurate that is. Hopefully it's never happened. Actually, hopefully it's just a story, but that is something why you often hear, have your backpack on the front, basically, instead of the back. Have the, hold your purse, hold your bag, hold your fanny pack, hold your tote bag under your arm, that kind of stuff. It makes sense just to sort of keep it. Pockets are insanely helpful. Don't put anything in your back pocket. There's the classic things is just, it also, and I think we've mentioned, we have an episode on being safe, but if you can, don't travel with all of your cars at the same time. Maybe just one of you brings a license, or you have to bring passports, especially if you're visiting Italy. Like if you're not from the EU, I think you have to bring your passport around, but maybe leave your driver's license at home. You don't need two forms of identity. Maybe bring a debit card, but not your credit card, stuff like that. Just if that way, if you do lose something, you don't lose everything.
Right. Exactly.
And so, yeah, that's just I don't know, to mitigate these.
Yeah. Protect yourself, essentially.
Absolutely.
So since we're kind of talking about Termini a bit, some people have reported that Termini is kind of dangerous at night. We have stayed around Termini many times in hotels, especially when we're going back and forth from Italy to the States, and we've never been harmed. So I just want to put that up top. However, other people have reported that there are more incidents of, I don't know, violence or being
I would say aggression more than anything else.
Yeah. And I will say that so Termini closes at night, but it's a big area where lights stay on. So for people who are sleeping outside, people who are experiencing homelessness, that's often viewed as a safer place for those people to be. In addition to that, there are nonprofit groups who come around with, sack lunches and meals and things, helping those people. So that's just to say that particularly late at night, there can be a lot of people in that area. And number one, it can feel a bit scary just because there's a lot of people around, but also sometimes there are people like maybe shouting, or if they feel like you're looking at them or something, it can feel aggressive potentially.
Yeah, for sure. No. I think, and again, it's almost, my understanding is it's more likely to be like pickpocketed, for instance, during the day, again, where there's a lot of people, you can easily escape, et cetera, even though there's more police presence in the day. And then at night, it's just more common. It seems like people coming back late, and we say at night, we do mean like 2, 3 in the morning. Anything before midnight, you're fine. It's just really after midnight, after 1, and then before 5 a.m., I'd say, because after 5 a.m., people do start getting to work. I think Rome Termini opens up between like 5 and 6 a.m., somewhere in there. So there's only a few hour period. I say this for anybody who has to like get an early flight or something like that, might be catching a taxi or has a very early train, and like they're like, is it going to be safe if I'm up there at 4:30 in the morning? Again, you and I have not had problems being around there late at night. It's just the mass of people. You're going to have some people who are just aggressive, and you have
just by ratio. It's not to say that people who sleep in that area are aggressive. They're just people. But just because there happen to be many people there and it's night, and as we say, humans will be humans, sometimes there might be some aggression.
Yeah.
So, speaking of maybe aggression, it's not that aggressive, but there are street sellers in Rome. And particularly when we talk about this, we mean people who will sell like bracelets, people who will sell roses, and sometimes those people, they're just walking around, they're just trying to sell you stuff. Sometimes they can be aggressive. you do not have to buy or take what they are selling. I had, particularly in Piazza del Popolo, there are people who walk around with like masses of bunches of roses. And I had someone essentially stab me in the hand with the stem of a rose trying to get me to buy it. And I went off on him in my best Italian at the time. And sometimes most of the time, people are not aggressive like that. They just pass you a rose and hope that you buy it. But this is all to say, if they get aggressive, walk away.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't have to interact with them. You can just walk away.
I mean, also a lot of the bracelet sellers to kind of toss you the bracelet. It's just an attempt to be like, hey, now that you have it, maybe give me €1 or two kind of thing. It's not like you can just dodge the bracelet. You can toss it back to them. It doesn't matter. It's just, but again, a lot of it I think is, because I think some people have this idea is like, are these scams? Are these this? It's not scams so much as it is social engineering, I would say. It's just,
because they are selling you a product.
Yeah, and I think once it's in your hand, you might feel bad enough to buy it from them sort of thing. So it's just, again, like, I mean, for example, sometimes somebody will toss you the bracelet and then they'll start like backing away, like, no, just, €1, €2, but you can just toss it back to them. And sometimes they're like, they don't want to catch it either. So I'm like, we're just going to keep throwing this on the ground to each other. Just eventually I'm going to walk away. And again, it's just, I don't think it's a scam. It's not, you mentioned it can be aggressive. People can be a little bit like, no, you sure you don't want it? You can take it. So it can be a little bit heavy, but worst case scenario, just no thanks, walk away. You're totally fine.
Absolutely. I have just adjusted my mic. My pop filter was bonking into my mic, so I apologize if you all kept hearing a light sort of punk.
Yeah.
That was me.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So you want to talk about airports now that I've changed my mic?
Well, now that we've talked about just pre-trip safety,
yes,
let's talk about actually getting to Rome specifically, yeah?
Yeah.
Arriving to Rome, there are two major airports. The first one is, I'm just going to give airport codes to make this easier for everybody who might be booking flights, is FCO. That is the Leonardo da Vinci or the Fiumicino Airport. I just had to give airport codes. I'm already a liar. That is the major airport. That is the big one. That is the one that you're almost certainly going to be flying into, or you should be flying into. The other one is called Ciampino, CIA. That is the sort of EasyJet, Ryanair, Wizz Air, whatever it is, sort of not discount, but the I was gonna say bootleg airport,
low budget carriers.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Low cost budget carriers.
And would you say also just like short haul flights as well?
Not necessarily. Short haul flights will still go into FCO typically, because even like there's flights from like Rome to Florence, weirdly, and a lot of those will still go out of FCO, not CIA. Interestingly. There's definitely gonna be some short haul flights for sure, but they also might be ones that might be short haul to something like, or not short haul, but they might be like North Macedonia, like Ohrid or something like that. It might be small airport to small airport. But yeah, so if you're flying in, almost certainly you're going to be flying into FCO, or you should be flying into FCO. It's the easiest one to get from the airport to the city center, and the easiest one to fly out of, just the way that the airport itself is structured.
Yeah. And talking about getting from FCO to the city center, big major tip. Use the Leonardo Express.
Absolutely.
So it's essentially the airport train. Just like if you've taken, I think of like JFK, there's the JFK AirTram, whatever.
AirTrain, yep.
AirTrain, yeah. This is essentially the airport train to the city. So when you get to the airport, you're going to find the train station at the airport, essentially, which is basically connected. And here's the big tip. So there are ticket sellers, and there's also the electronic ticket booths. And it is easy to look at the timetable and say, oh, which train's coming next? We'll get tickets for that one. Sometimes it's essentially there's a regional train. Is that what it is,
yes.
right?
Yeah.
That one takes a lot longer. So make sure that when you're looking at the icons when you're looking at the little timetable, find the icon that says Leonardo Express. That's the one you want to take. And
on that note, just very briefly, because it'll basically, when you go to the little ticket kiosk, it already have the presets. I mean, you can buy tickets to anywhere. It's any train you want. But it already has the presets of that airport into Rome. So if you click that preset, and it gives you the list of like, here's the next upcoming trains. The regional train, the Trenitalia Regionale, will actually be going to Tiburtina, not to Termini. You want to go to Termini, almost certainly want to go to Termini. If, of course, you want to go to Tiburtina, that's fine too. It's a different train station. We'll talk about that in a second. But most people, 90% of you listening, want to be going to Termini. And that is, I think, only on the Leonardo Express. I think some years ago, you can get, there's different versions. But the last couple of times we've gone, there are no other options to get into Rome itself, like into Rome Centrale or Termini itself.
Okay.
It's 14 euros a person. It's, I think, 28 minutes long. It's like a down to a science kind of thing. There's luggage racks. Super, super, super easy. There's no problems. CIA, on the other hand, or Ciampino, has an air link, I think is what it's called. It's a bus. It's a little bit more complicated, I think, as a bus to a metro. So it's a little bit of a two-step process. And again, it's not the easiest to get to. It's not the easiest to get around. And it almost certainly isn't going to be going anywhere that you want to go. But on the off chance, well, I say that in the sense of like, you're not taking like an easy jet from like New York to Rome, you know?
Oh, no.
But on the off chance, for some reason that you find yourself like, oh, this flies into CAA, that's weird. It just might be a little more funky to get into Rome than from FCO, but not the end of the world by any means.
Got it. Cool.
Train stations?
Yeah, let's talk about train stations.
Well, we've already talked about Termini, but we can...
Okay, so there's Termini and Tiburtina. If you are not used to Italian words, those can sound very similar. They are not the same. Some people also refer to Termini as Centrale. Is the full name Termini Stazione Centrale?
I think it's just Roma Termini.
Oh, okay. But it's the main central station, which is why people call it Centrale sometimes.
Exactly.
Okay. So, right. So Termini has a metro, which is a subway. It's got a massive area for buses, lots of different buses.
City buses, though.
City buses. Yes. Thank you. Really good point, because we're going to say in a second the distinction is that Tiburtina has... Is it intercity? Intracity? It's the buses that go outside of Rome, right?
Yes.
So, but Termini has a big bus area for inside of Rome city buses, and there's also one tram stop. I think
it's 2 different tram lines.
Okay, so big hub for transportation.
Exactly. Yeah.
So inside the city, essentially.
And even on that note, very briefly, if you're ever lost in Rome for some reason and you kind of know where you are in relation to Termini, it does help. Not everything flows through Termini at all, but there's a good chance that wherever you are, some form of transportation does go through Termini. And if you know how to get back to your hotel or wherever you're staying from Termini, you'll be fine. Mm-hmm. It's a great way to kind of like, oh, if I go back to the center point, then I know how to get home. Especially,
for instance, if you don't have a digital map, if your phone is dead or something like that, if you know how to get back there, you're good to go.
Yes. And then briefly, though, Tiburtina, just because we're going to jump more into Termini in a second, that, as you mentioned, is like the Flixbus, the Ita bus, all the big buses that go between Rome and other cities or Rome and other countries. I mean, not the Vatican necessarily, but like if you're going to catch an overnight bus to Germany or, France, you're going to catch it from Tiburtina. Mm-hmm. It's right next to the highway. It also does have a fast train, but the reason we wanted to make this distinction is sometimes the train, if you're on trainitalia.com or using the app or something like that, or if you're at the station and you're looking for a ticket, and the train, you might say like, oh, it's going to go to Rome, perfect. Not all trains that go to Tiburtina will also go to Termini. Mm-hmm. Not the end of the world. You're still in Rome. You can just get off in Tiburtina, especially if you have a ticket to Tiburtina, to be clear. But I mean, like sometimes we've been on trains where it's clear that somebody's like, oh, this is Tiburtina, and then they look around like, this doesn't look like where we're supposed to be. And they realize like, wait, like, like the next stop is Termini. Maybe it's Termini we're supposed to go. Let's just stay on the train. It's a whole thing. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things as a class. It seems like a very classic conversation to have, especially on the train coming into Rome, where people are like, it's the same thing in Napoli. Napoli has 2 stations as well. They're just like, oh my gosh, I couldn't remember the name. I just bought 1 ticket. Same thing. So if you're coming into Rome from let's say Florence or from Venice or whatever it is, and you don't remember which one it is, it's almost certainly you want to go to Termini. So buy a ticket for Termini, not for Tiburtina. Again, some of these, but because if you do happen to get one for Tiburtina, because of how that train station is laid out, it might pass straight through and continue going south to Napoli and not pull into Rome itself. Right.
But if you accidentally end up at Tiburtina and you need to get to Termini or some other part of Rome, you're fine.
Yes, absolutely.
It is also a hub for transportation. It has a metro?
I believe it has a metro. I think it's on I call it the blue line. I think
okay. So you can just get a ticket, hop on the metro, get to where you need to go. It's just that you can avoid it by booking a ticket to Termini.
And truthfully, you should. I have a weird amount of hatred for Tiburtina. I have no idea. I think everybody does, but that's maybe just my incredibly biased opinion.
Afragola.
Yeah, I hate Afragola.
It's a beautiful station, though.
Gorgeous station. Beautiful station.
Otherwise, not great.
I honestly don't understand what it's doing there. So
let's talk a bit about, I kind of want to talk about buying tickets and such.
Beautiful.
And in that, I want to reference Termini.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So for, if you're trying to take a train, for instance, to Florence, there are big red Italo and Frecciarossa ticket stations.
Like kiosks?
Kiosks, thank you. There are also people, like physical human people, where you can buy tickets. There are also, separate from those, kiosks for the metro. And the metro, tram, and bus tickets are all the same system. They're all ATAC, which is the Rome transportation system. So if you buy a ticket from that for public transportation in Rome, you can use that across buses, metros, and trams. As
well as coach-roll buses, which is not that important unless you're going to someplace like, I think there's a coach-roll bus to, I think it's Ostia. There's one to the, what is it? The fellows.
Lago.
Oh, I was thinking the garden.
Tivoli?
Yes. You can take it to Tivoli.
Did you say the Fellows Garden?
Yeah, it's like the Fellows Villa with the gardens. And you can also use it for, this is super unimportant for you, but you might use it. Train Italia has regional trains within Rome, as in like it's running from north to south in Italy, and it happens to hit 3 different stations in Rome. Strangely, in Rome, you can use that same ticket for the buses and the trams and anything else on the regional train. And I think there's a few other little weird train lines. Like I think one is from Rome to Ostia. There's a train you can use the ticket as well. So it's an incredibly powerful €1.50 ticket that can bring you to a lot of places. So I just wanted to mention, in case you're thinking, if you're trying to plan out a trip, especially if you're budgeting. If you're not budgeting, then yeah, buy another ticket. It's €1.50, you're fine. But if you're somebody who's like, I want to really maximize this ticket, I want to go as far as I can on this ticket.
Mm-hmm. And we've done it. It's pretty fun.
Oh yeah, we do because we have the month-long passes, so you can it's just unlimited thing. So we just kind of curious, like, how far can this take us? That like we've already paid for it. So how long does this $1.50 take us? And you can go pretty far on it. Like it's all, again, mostly for, I think, workers who live outside the city who need to come in. So I mean, sort of kind of a Long Island into New York type of situation. So it seems like they really do try to connect a lot of outlying areas into Rome itself.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we forget to say this, it takes about an hour to get anywhere in Rome.
Yes.
And we thought we were the only ones who thought this, and we just couldn't figure out the system until recently. We heard from other people who have lived in Rome. It takes an hour to get wherever you're going. Yes. Unless you're walking down the street to the cafe. If you get on public transportation, which is incredible and very connected, like Nathaniel's saying, it's still going to take you an hour.
It's a bit like, I mean, I think New York, especially back in the day, and I say the back in the day, I mean like the early 1900s was like that, when you wouldn't really leave your area. Like you had your local butcher, you had your local grocery, you had all these things.
Your community in your neighborhood.
Yeah, why would I leave? I have a job. My life is here. Even though I'm in the larger New York City, I'm not really in New York City. I'm just in my neighborhood. Rome is very much still like that. There's a lot of there's a neighborhood grocery store, neighborhood butcher, neighborhood baker, literally everything you could possibly need. So a lot of people don't tend to go into other places, especially more touristy places. They're like, there's nothing for me there.
And it takes forever to get there.
And that's the other thing. They're like, but when you start that journey between the buses, which they do tend to run frequently, I will say. I know some people have problems with them, but we've always found they run frequently. They do just get stopped in traffic. They do have to stop people, to stop and pick people up. And then if you have to switch to another bus, you sometimes are waiting for a while. So even if it's running frequently, you might have missed one and you have to wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes for the next one. So it can be like, oh, this is just going to take all day. And of course, it has taken all day. The metro, though, on the other hand, if you are lucky enough to have a hotel, for example, on the metro line, so much easier. Oh my gosh, the metro comes every 5 minutes at the most. Maybe 2 minutes to 5 minutes, especially in the summer. And if you're going to, I think, the Vatican, the Colosseum, Termini, I think that's pretty much what you'll probably go to in Italy. I mean, there's no metro to the Pantheon or anything like that, but most of the big sites are on a metro line, so it's so much easier if you're on a metro line to get around. Yeah. Bus lines, while very comprehensive, are a little bit more difficult to get around.
Yeah, they just take a bit more time in between each bus. We're going to get into this a bit more in a second, but if you stay near Termini, just be aware that especially in the height of summer when there are tons of tourists, it's going to be very crowded in that station getting to somewhere else. So like Nathaniel's saying, that's a really good suggestion to try to book a hotel near a metro stop. But maybe if you can avoid staying near Termini, if you're trying to get to a lot of the tourist sites and historical sites, it's super well connected. It's just that station is very, very crowded.
Yes, especially if you're staying for a few nights, though. If you're just staying for one night, Termini does make sense because it limits the amount of transportation within the city in terms of... Sure. But if you're staying for 4 or 5 nights, 3 nights even, definitely, go ahead and stay near the Vatican, stay near the Colosseum, something like that. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I want to go back to, you talked about ticket prices.
Yes, please.
So like you said, it's $150 for a single ticket, and that ticket is good for 100 minutes. You can only use it once for the metro. So you can't use it for one line of the metro and then hop onto the other line. But you can.
The reverse line.
Yes.
But you can hop onto the other line.
Oh.
Yeah.
I thought it was a broken system. It's not.
No. So just to briefly explain,
Yeah,
to the listener, to explain your confusion. The Rome system, there's only 2 lines in Rome. So don't think of like a system like, New York. There's 2 lines, and essentially they run in an X formation. They're building a line C. They have a couple stops. It doesn't really count. No offense. It's really just lines A and B, and they kind of form an X, and they intersect at Termini. So I think it's line B is the orange line. In my head, they're orange and blue. I don't know why. I can never remember which one's A and which one's B, but I think A is the orange line. That connects like the Vatican to the Piazza del Popolo, to the Spanish Steps, Trevi Fountain, technically, Termini, et cetera, et cetera. The blue line is pretty much the Colosseum and Termini. There's a few other things on there. Tiburtina, I think, is on that line. So they do intersect at Termini. So in theory, you can get on, let's just say in Prati, which would be Ottaviano stop, which is the stop for the Vatican. It's on the line A, I think the orange line. If it's okay with you guys, listeners, I'm just going to use colors. If you look it up, you know what the color, you'll be like, oh, I see why he's using colors. They're very color coded. And if you hop on the orange line in Ottaviano, you can go to Termini and then switch to the blue line to go to Colosseo.
Cool. That makes sense.
But you cannot go to Termini, leave the station, go, I don't know, shopping, come back and take the same train back within the same 100 minutes.
Got it. However, if you take a bus somewhere, you go shopping, you can get back on that bus to go back in the same direction.
Yes.
Within 100 minutes.
Or you can go one way in a bus, come back on the tram or the metro, or go then the metro, come back on the tram or bus. So it's just you can't go one direction, come back in the same direction on the metro. Absolutely can with the bus, with the tram, everything like that. So again, these tickets are very powerful in the sense of, and it seems 100 minutes doesn't seem like much, but it's essentially an hour and a half. So, if you're going somewhere for like a grocery store, potentially, if you're staying for a few nights, or if you're just going to check out a market, or if just something small like...
Or if you have a 2 destinations in mind that are pretty quick, you take the bus to one stop and then hop off, do whatever you need to do, and hop back on a bus and go somewhere else. It really, like you said, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And so if you can't just keep track of the time or have extra tickets, essentially.
It is stamped on it, I will say, but like just, keep track of like how much longer you have, because it tells you when you stamped it and when it's going to expire.
Exactly. So the initial ticket, I think, will be like €2, right? It's a 50-cent charge because the ticket is reusable. Like you can recharge
some of them
the
are
ticket.
So some of the ones you get, like the Tabacchi and the Edicolo. So the 3 places to buy tickets, essentially. At the stations themselves, there are both the kiosks, and there are some of the stations will have a ticket window. Not all of them. Not all of them are functional, but there's still be a ticket window.
And Termini has a Tabacchi as well, where we get tickets.
And then Termini has the Tabacchi. There are Tabacchis all over the city. You can get tickets there as well. You can ask for bus tickets or train ticket or metro tickets. In our experience, the people running this Tabacchi tend to speak enough English to know, like bus ticket or train ticket, what you mean.
And a Tabacchi is essentially a cigarette and salt shop.
Yes. So if you need cigarettes, salt, or tickets, that's where you go. And so you can get them from there, and those will be $150. And from some of the kiosks, it's $150 for the ticket. However, as Darcy mentioned, €2, they are rolling out this new, and I say new, it's been last like a year or two, paper ticket that is rechargeable. So it's essentially, they're trying to make it like one of those contactless tap and go cards, but it's paper, it's rechargeable, and I don't love it. I'll be honest. I don't love it because I love the idea of like, let's reduce, reuse, recycle. I do love that. It's more the fact of in the summer, especially when you're sweating, that paper ticket starts to deteriorate really, really fast. And second, their whole thing is like, you can recharge this. And I think personally, the branding on it is terrible because it does tell you can recharge it, but it's not very clear of like, hey, this is a permanent ticket. You can recharge it. Don't throw it away.
It doesn't look
don't
that
lose
different
it.
from the others.
Exactly. It looks exactly the same. I had to explain to him. I love my father. I explained to him like 5 times. I'm like, don't throw away your ticket. Don't throw away your ticket. It's rechargeable. Please don't throw away your ticket. Of course, he's like, oh, I threw it away. I thought it was like a one-time use. And I'm like, okay, it's not your fault. I know what the ticket looks like. I don't know what I was thinking. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just one of those, it's a silly thing. It's my mental thing where I'm like, 152 euros. It doesn't really matter how much the ticket is.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of a few days, I'm like, I just spent like an extra 6 euros on tickets because I kept getting the 2 euro one thinking I would recharge it, and I never recharged it.
On that note, for keeping your ticket, so whenever you go to take the metro, you stick your ticket in the little, what do you call that? Not a toll booth, the little gate.
For the metro? The turnstile.
Yeah. Thank you, the turnstile. So you stick your ticket in the turnstile and your ticket will come back out, take your ticket, and then go through the little doors or the turnstile.
Yes. On the bus, though, if that's what you're talking about next?
Yes.
On the bus, there are essentially 2 ways to get a ticket. First is have a ticket, get on the bus, and then validate it on that little yellow box. It's kind of the same thing as a turnstile. Stick it in there. It reads it. It stamps it. It spits it back out. Or if you did not get a ticket on buses, and now metros as well, you can just tap your card, your bank card, your debit card, credit card, whatever. The rule of thumb is on buses especially, you enter in the middle of the bus. So there's always usually 2 or 3 doors, a front door, a middle door, and sometimes a back door. You enter usually the middle door. If you have a credit card or debit card, you go right because that's going to be near the bus driver is where the card reader is. If you have a paper ticket, you go left because typically near the back of the bus or the middle of the bus, depending on how many doors it has, is where the paper ticket validator is. Just as a big heads up, you definitely have to validate your ticket.
You definitely have to validate your ticket.
It's a big thing. I honestly, I'm assuming like 95% of the ATAX budget comes from people not validating the tickets and getting fines.
Because people who work for the ATAX system, like the ATAC patrol people, will get on the bus at random stops, and the bus will have to stop while they check everybody's ticket to make sure it's validated.
Yeah.
Often these ticket validating machines, the little yellow box that you stick your ticket in, they are often broken on buses. I learned today from Nathaniel that in that case, you need to go to the bus driver and they will essentially rip your ticket a bit, which is really inconvenient if you're supposed to have a reusable ticket. But whatever.
I know. And they also write on and with pen the time.
Okay, cool. If like we have done before by accident, if the machine is broken, lots of people are just like, okay, I guess I don't validate my ticket. Like I'm kind of worried. So you need to go to the bus driver and get them to mark it essentially, because if the ATAC patrol people get on and see that you don't have a validated ticket, it doesn't matter if that validating box machine is broken, you will get a fine.
Yes.
And the fines you said are 50 euros, I think.
If you pay on the spot.
If you pay on the spot. Yeah, if you pay the people like that moment, right?
In cash on the spot.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they give you a receipt and everything. I mean, it's very official.
It is official, but I don't love it. But then it goes up to 100 euros if you can't pay on the spot, right?
Yes. If you have to pay later, then they charge you 100. And as you mentioned, you say often the yellow boxes are broken. I think we've only seen yellow boxes broken like twice in the...
I thought it was more than that.
Well, I guess I don't know. We almost never use them. We've only used the monthly tickets.
Pass, yeah.
And that's something else. It's something that we kept seeing. And then it was like, I don't know. It almost seemed like, again, misinformation is you'll often see Romans get on the bus without paying. It's not that they aren't paying. It's that they have a month or year pass that does not require them to tap the pass. Mm-hmm. So it looks like they just get on without paying. They are, in fact, on a pass that allows them to just use it whenever. Yeah. So don't like be like, oh, I guess nobody pays.
Don't do as the Romans do in that case.
Yes, exactly. It's because I think some people take that like, oh, I was in Rome and I never saw anybody pay. And it's like, no, they did. They for sure did.
Yeah.
And even if when the controllers come by, they'll come by and ask for our card and they tap into their machine to make sure it's that it's updated and valid.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's likewise talk about being on the bus. When you're on the metro, it is easy to see what stops you are at. It has a little sign. They all have little signs in it, and they'll say like where you're arriving to, the next station you're going to come to. Very easy to understand where you are when you're on the metro.
I think it's also in English and Italian. So even if you can't see out the window because it's slammed in the metro, you just listen. The next stop is so-and-so. Exit on your right.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you. I did practice that.
But on a bus, it is very difficult to know what the bus stop's name is. Like when you're passing, you're passing, yeah, does that make sense? Okay.
There's a bus stop sign, and at the very top of the sign, there's a name of the stop. It's in, I think, 10-point font lettering. Yep. Mm-hmm. It is completely invisible when you're on the bus itself because the sign is taller than the bus will be, so you can't actually see the sign. Yep. And then my favorite part is nobody knows the name of a bus stop in that country. You can be like, I'm looking for this bus stop.
In that country.
In Rome, that country. In that city. I was like, what is it though in that city? No one. I mean, so it's one of those things again, like we stopped caring about it because we realized that's not how people remember it. You're like, oh, I'm getting off near XYZ. Like, it's basically if there is a bus stop that you're using frequently, it's better to remember something near that bus stop than it is to remember that stop's name. Because if you're asking somebody, does this go to so-and-so? It's easier to ask, does this go to that like so-and-so supermarket near the Vatican? Like, yeah. And they're like, awesome. I'm going to hop on. The bus drivers should know where they go and which stops they'll stop at, I will say. So if you can ask the bus driver, this is more for people on the bus, have no idea.
Right.
The bus drivers will be like, yeah, this goes to so-and-so.
Exactly. So that's all to say that it is incredibly helpful to use a map on your phone that like tracks. I mean, I'm not trying to encourage y'all to get the internet to track your location. However, it is very helpful to use, for instance, Google Maps that will track where you are so you can see how close you're getting to the stop where you need to get off. Because on the bus, unlike the metro, you will have to ding, like, press the little button before your stop so that the bus driver knows that you want them to stop at the next stop. Just like,
which again, I'm glad you explained that because if you have never ridden a bus before, that is how all buses tend to work. They just, you have to pull the string or ring the button for them to know you want to get off.
Trams also have a button system,
stop button,
but it seems that trams almost always stop at every stop.
That's the thing, at least in Rome, we've never seen the tram not stop, even though they have a button, and people sometimes click the button, but they've always, even when nobody clicks the button, even though the sign doesn't light up stop, even when there's nobody at the stop physically, they'll still stop there. So I'm assuming they run more like metros do, in the sense of we stop everywhere, even if nobody's there, and less like buses. If I may, though, on the bus, I do want to mention hailing the bus.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, okay. Is sometimes you'll notice this, and we've actually noticed that when we're on a bus and we pass by 5 or 6 people at a bus stop, and all of a sudden they throw up their hands and like, what? You're leaving us? In Rome, I think especially, Florence, I saw this a little bit, but Rome felt really, really important. Salerno, Naples as well. The bus drivers will look at you if you're at a bus stop and try to and the question is, do you need this bus? Because if not, I'm going to keep going.
They're using telepathy and their eyes to say, do you want me to stop? You need to signal me.
Yeah. So you'll notice, especially in Rome, a lot of Romans will kind of stick out their hand to hail the bus. If you see a bus coming, like you need bus 32 and no one around you is hailing it, you absolutely need to be the one hailing it. If there's somebody getting on, I would assume getting off at the stop, then you get lucky. But if, for instance, on that bus, nobody's getting off where you are and nobody else around you is hailing the bus, they will pass by you.
Yes.
Because likewise, too, if you want to be polite, if the bus is looking at you, doing that eyeball telepathy thing, you can also sort of wag your finger and be like, no, thank you, I don't need that bus. And then they'll just give you a little wave and say, thanks for saving me some time.
And usually, so once you've hailed the bus and you're maybe like Darcy and you're freaking out like, oh my gosh, did they see me? You'll notice that they will put on their right blinker if they've seen you and they're pulling over.
Yes.
So that's a good indication of you're good to go.
And there's a really good chance they're not going to pull over the sidewalk, or they're just going to kind of stop in the street and you're just going to have to walk over there. Yes. Sometimes they pull over, but sometimes they're just
it's a pullover-ish.
Yeah, they're like, I got close. So yeah, that's buses in Rome.
Yeah, that was good. Okay, let's move on to markets.
Yes, it's a little fun markets.
If you've taken the bus to the market.
I love it.
That's my transition.
It's a beautiful segue.
Okay, so we're going to talk about, there are lots of markets in Rome. We're going to talk about, I think, our 3 favorite ones.
Yeah. Do we want to start with the clothing? Because we have, then we can move through food?
Yeah, let's do it.
Porta Portoghese?
Is incredible.
Yes.
Pain in the behind to get to if you're not staying in that neighborhood.
Yes.
And it is likely that you will not be staying in that neighborhood. It is largely residential and not very close to like tourist sites.
It's near-ish to Trastevere, but it's actually quite near Trastevere, but it's the market, like one end of the market is at Trastevere. The other end of the market is 15 miles away. Not really, but it's huge, a giant market. It's also it's mostly clothing. It's, I think, a split, but I'd say a heavier split of used clothing than new clothing.
Definitely.
So, and sometimes it'll even be like, you can't really tell the difference. It'll be like new clothing, but it'll be like a bunch of piles on tables that, like from Mango or things like that, like H&M, that clearly never sold. They just bought in bulk and they're reselling. So like $10 for anything on this table. But most of it is going to be used clothing. And it's it's basically, tends to be piles of clothing on a table that you just go digging through.
Yeah, which is amazing. That's my number one pick.
Yes.
They also have sort of more like, no shade, but like hipster vintage sort of sellers stalls where they'll have like a bunch of leather jackets or something, or like Doc Martens
and jeans. Like those are all jeans from the 80s or before.
Like Levi's, which is cool.
Yeah.
They also have some things that are definitely more antiques. They have a couple. There are often a couple of sellers. I mean, antiques for sure. We'll get into that in a second. But people who sell like a lot of lace and more like vintage gowns and such like
linen,
that.
Things like that.
Linen, exactly. So different kinds of clothing for sale there, as well as some new stuff. Also really cool antiques in lots of different stalls. Like some of them are giant, like busts
genuine
and
antiques.
things. So you're not going to be able to take that home. But like just really cool antiques and things.
And the reason we mention it is, I mean, one, if you like any markets, used markets, things like that, it's genuinely a lot of fun. It's kind of just a great way to spend a Sunday morning. It's only on Sundays, only in the morning. It's kind of over by one or two. I'd err on the side of saying one though. And it's also kind of a really fun way to get, I think, like things to bring home.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always like silk scarves. There's always some table silk scarves. They're in great quality, great condition. I mean, so it's a kind of a fun gift for people back home. I've gotten so many linen shirts and stuff from these markets just because, like, I mean, they're €5 each or €2 each or €1 each. So you can kind of be a great place to get like little memorabilia of your trip sort of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or the small, if you find like a small, like antiques, sometimes there's antique jewelry. We've bought earrings before just as a way of like, oh, this will be kind of fun to like just, I don't know, commemorate being in Rome again.
Yeah, I got some great hair clips there that I still use.
Yeah.
They weren't vintage, but they're awesome.
But they're fun. And there's also like other random things. Like there's always a couple sellers doing like natural shampoos and soaps. And there's always like a lavender thing. And so there's a bunch of random things. It's kind of just fun to, I mean, if you're into photography as well, it's a bit of an interesting place to do street photography. Again, I think you should ask people, but every time we're there, we see people taking photos of everything just because it's tons of people.
Note, we have mentioned this before, but it is our understanding that you cannot take a photo of people outside in public without their permission if your purpose is to use that, monetize that photo.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I will say that we happened to meet a woman one time when we were in Rome who had just been pickpocketed at this market.
Oh yeah, really?
Yeah. It was the mom that we met at.
Oh my gosh, that's pizza. Right, yeah.
I don't think it necessarily has to do with the market, and I'm also not saying at all it was her fault, but be aware it is
it's a crowded market. Yeah.
That's what it is.
Packed full of people. It's also, and this is not even, but just more, I guess, health than safety, but it's also, most of the market is down a sort of a alleyway that is very hot. There is one water fountain in the entire alleyway, and on the other end, there's a grocery store, but every time we go, we're like, we're ready, we have water, we're prepared, and then every time we're like, I'm dying. This is actually a terrible decision. I mean, it was always an amazing decision, but halfway through.
In that moment when you're, very, very thirsty.
So that's just bring water. But if you're at all interested, like a bargain hunter, like looking through piles of stuff, like finding things, it's mostly just if you're like finding things, a lot of fun.
Super cool. It's a bit like a flea market.
Yeah.
You've been to a flea market.
It's an Italian flea market.
Super cool. So the next market we want to talk about, also super cool, no antiques at this one, is Trionfale. Did I say that right?
I think so.
Which is somewhat near the Vatican.
It's Prati, which is in the neighborhood just next to the Vatican.
And it is amazing for grocery shopping. If you're doing a longer stay or if you want to just grab some cheese or something for a picnic, highly recommend you go to Trionfale. It's got I would say a lot of locally made goods. That's not to say that everything goods, I mean produce and cheese and stuff.
Okay, sure.
Not everything is local. Like you're gonna find bananas at some sellers.
Oh God, yeah.
They don't grow bananas in Italy. However, there are a couple of stalls where everything is grown just outside of Rome, essentially.
It's an interesting thing. So it's basically, imagine 4 quadrants. This giant market. It's an indoor.
Yes.
It's like an indoor-outdoor market kind of thing. I mean, there's no outdoor part, but imagine an outdoor market that is in fact indoor, and it has like it's not north, south, east, west, but imagine, if you will, a north, south, and then an east, west sort of streets, walkways, and those are your sort of major thoroughfares. 95% of that is not going to be what we go there for. It's in the quadrants themselves is where it gets really specific. As you mentioned, local farms. I mean, there's one guy only sells watermelon. I don't know what he sells the rest of the year, but in the summer, he's literally only selling watermelon. And the one next to him is pretty much like zucchini and eggplant and peppers, and that's it. And I think there's other that, if you're into like sandwiches and stuff, there's people who do porchetta, there's people who do cured and dried meats, cheeses. 2
different stalls for Vino alla Spina, which is like the wine from the keg.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll do, if you want a glass there, they give a glass there. I mean, there's one, especially, I think it's called Gustavino, and they'll do tastings, and we'll go there usually at 9:30, 10 in the morning, and they're like, you guys want to, try some wine? So, I mean, we're fully, at least I am.
Nathaniel got 3 sheets to the wind by accident one time.
Yeah, because I was like, oh yeah, and try another. And then she's like, we have a Prosecco, we have this. You want to try them both to see which one you like better? And I'm like, of course I want to see, yeah, whatever. And I hadn't had any food, and I'm just like, I am doing really well right now.
I had to go to the cheese stall and try out some cheese and buy some cheese.
I need to like some of those soak it up. Yeah. But it's honestly, even if you're just in the neighborhood, it's really kind of fun. Again, I think it closes at like 2 or 3, closes in the afternoon. But if you're just in the neighborhood, whether you're looking for groceries, you want some snacks, you're going to put together a picnic, there are some pre-made things in terms of some places will make you sandwiches and stuff. It's not 100% the intent. There's also a whole corner devoted to fish if you're, again, looking for fish.
And it's smelly.
It smells like fish. I mean, it doesn't smell, some of it definitely.
It smells like fresh fish.
Yeah.
But fish just is smelly.
Well, I think that's supposed to think like that. So there's some famous fish market. Some of it smells like the sea because like fresh fish is supposed to smell like the sea. It's not supposed to like smell like fish.
I have smelled some pretty stinky sea as well.
It's a very fair point. This one is a fish market that smells more like fish than the sea.
Okay.
I think is a safe way to put it. But it seems very lovely. And no, so essentially if you're whatever you're into.
One other sort of oddball one. Balls of yarn. There is
amazing segue. Phenomenal.
Like stream of consciousness coming
out of my
Nicolas
Cage, National Treasure sort of stream of consciousness.
Okay, so there is the last time we went, it was just one seller of yarn. There may be more now, but there's one large booth. It's like a double wide booth where this person sells yarn, and I will say it's kind of hard to find Italian like wool, which is a big export.
Yeah.
It's pretty hard to find that inside of Italy. But here at the stall, you can ask him, I'm looking for Italian-made wool specifically, like not acrylic is acrylic, whatever. Anyways, you can get Italian wool there. So if you're a knitter, crocheter, 100% recommend that.
There's also a guy who makes sandals, and it's not like it's not handmade. It's partially handmade in the sense of I think it's pre-made bits and bobs that he puts together for you, but it's also, again, similar in case like you're thinking Italian wool. I was thinking Italian, like I want Italian made sandals. I think it's like 50 to 70 euros. And I think, again, he does some of the work himself to be sure, but it's not like he'll trace out your foot and then, it's kind of like I have these pre-made things that I can.
Like the footbed is predetermined, pre-made.
Predetermined. It's a predetermined footbed. So that's our second favorite. And our third favorite though is Mercato Testaccio.
Yeah.
In the Testaccio neighborhood. Which is honestly probably a neighborhood you wouldn't really be going to for any reason. It's kind of an awkward. It's south of Trastevere. It's a little awkward in terms of getting to. It's not easy. I want to be honest. If you are a foodie though, somebody who really is interested in food, who really does want to taste food, food, but what I'm saying, like Roman food.
Food, guys, food.
Guy, come on, food. Food. Testaccio neighborhood is probably where you want to be. One, it tends to be a bit cheaper than a lot of the other food in Rome but like. We're talking from like restaurants that have been there for 50, 100 years. It's really high quality. It seems like they have a ton of food tours centered in this neighborhood specifically. They have gelato, they have all sorts of things, and they have a Testaccio market. It used to be an outdoor market. It's now they call it a covered outdoor market. So essentially it's almost like a building without a ceiling. Not a ceiling, yeah, a roof. But then they have like, instead, some of it is plastic roof and some of it is cloth roof. It's something weird.
I remember having a roof.
Yeah. Okay. Is it a roof?
Some sort of roof.
Because it's open in the middle. You don't get
wet if it's raining.
Well, no, it's open in the middle. Where the sitting area is open, and then there's tents, and then not tents, the umbrellas, and then there's like tarps and stuff like those.
I clearly was not looking up. I was looking at all the food stands and the shoe market thingies, and I wasn't looking up.
Well, this one is so. I guess basically to talk about this. To the other parts, you mentioned the shoe markets. There is some clothing sellers. There are some shoe markets. There are some essentially neighborhood things, bits and bobs. It's very bits and bobs. And then there's a pretty large portion devoted to food already made. So Trionfale would be groceries. This would be more, I'm looking for lunch. It's only for lunch, by the way. It's not open for dinner. It's open, I think, again, closes at like 3. The entire place goes like 2 or 3. And I think it's only open 5 days a week. There's 2 days of the week it's not open. Can't remember where they are. They'll be in the description though. Somebody will remember for me later. But that is, it has a couple of famous both sandwich shops and sort of restaurants, like takeaway food restaurant type things. Some of them end up going on to start restaurants themselves. It's kind of like a proving ground. And if it does well there, then they end up starting a restaurant. Some of them just stay there. And there's some that are, again, world famous in terms of just I mean, they've got pictures, the Anthony Bourdain sort of thing where people visit. It's been on TV shows. It's kind of a phenomenal place to have lunch. As there is like a courtyard, essentially. It's a very nice food court.
Yes.
I think is what you can describe it as.
Yeah, exactly. And these sort of restaurants are in booths, essentially. Yes. So, they're not small. I mean, like it's a large area for some of them, and some of them are kind of small, but you can walk around it's like set out in a grid, and there's booths around. And like Nathaniel was saying, a lot of them are these pretty famous restaurants that are just incredible. And it's really cool because since it's set up like a food court, you can't necessarily take food from one restaurant into the other, but you can, if you're with a group, split up, each get something from each restaurant, then go to the courtyard and, taste from all of them. And
then there's like fresh pasta, sandwiches, arancini, piazza Italia, pizza Italia, piazza Italia. There's all sorts of food. So it's really something for everyone. And if you want a fun little thing, we always like to take, but we've taken food from there, something that just stays warm for long enough or cold for long enough. And if you there's the Palatine Hill over there. It's got the famous, everyone was taking pictures through the keyhole for a while because through the keyhole you can see the Vatican. But right next to that is a lovely orange garden. It's a garden with orange trees. Really lovely to have a little picnic in. And then a little bit even farther down the street is another garden/park. So if you're looking for a little bit of, in the summer, height of summer, you want to be up high, somewhere with a breeze, eating some food in the shade. Beautiful place to do it.
Absolutely.
And then I think those are the 3 markets.
Yeah. That's
Perfect.
it.
Wow.
So we've talked about if you're into antiques, food, grocery shopping, picnicking.
Love grocery shopping.
All of those things. Let's talk about if you're interested in music.
Yes.
So particularly in the summer, Rome has a couple of different music festivals, which doesn't necessarily mean that like there's a lot of music happening at the same time. It means more that there are big musical events and concerts across the summer.
Yes.
So there is the Roma Summerfest. Rock and Roma is huge. They have like big names, like Alanis Morissette's going to be there this year. Smashing Pumpkins is another one that I remember off the top of my head.
Black Keys is supposed to be coming. John Baptiste, who does I think it's like on Stephen Colbert.
Yeah. I didn't know he was coming.
I think, and then even the years past, they've been a number of big names, both
Every
in Italy
year,
and then worldwide.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's, again, it's not like a festival. Not all those people will be there on the same day. It's that they have concerts throughout the summer.
Yes.
There's also the Festa della Caracalla, which is at the Baths of Caracalla. We went to see an opera there one time. It was pretty cool. Really
Carmen,
long.
I think.
Carmen. Mm-hmm. It was obviously it's an opera. It took a long time, but it was very cool.
No, we had to leave actually, I think 2/3 of the way through because we realized
there were no buses at the end of it.
After midnight, we're like, oh, we need to leave. Otherwise, we're not going to get home.
Yeah. But they have some plays. They'll have some musical events this summer.
And then Ostia Antica as well will have some musical events outside in the ruins.
Super cool.
Yeah, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
Is that where Benjamin Clementine's going to be this year?
Yes, I think so.
Oh, I really want to go to that.
Okay. I know. It'll be a lot of fun.
If anybody goes to see Benjamin Clementine in Ostia Antica, please let me know how it was. It's going to be amazing. There's also a jazz festival that just got over. I just want to...
And a chamber music festival that is already finished, unfortunately.
Yeah, sorry. The jazz music festival's coming up, but the chamber music just ended. Yeah.
And I will say, too, just in case you're looking for music in Italy, Milan tends to have all the big names. Rome, I think it's too far away from Central Europe. I mean, you can't really do like Milan one night and then Germany or Austria the next night as easily because there's 6-7 hours.
You can't do Milan?
No, sorry, you can't do Rome, but you can do, thank you, but you can do Milan. Yeah. So Milan tends to have all the big names, all the pop stars go to Milan. Rome is a little bit more like, yeah, we get a couple people here. This is nice.
But it's big names often.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's been, I mean, historically, I think like Mumford and Sons and things like that. Mm-hmm. I mean, and then a lot of the big people in Italy will go to Rome.
Yeah. Okay, that was music.
Nice.
Next, we're moving on to the 3 T's.
Yes.
We have a whole episode about this if you want to go and listen to it, but we're just going to quickly go through tap water, tipping, and toilets.
Yeah, I think these are...
Tap water, number one thing in Rome. It's tap water. It's just awesome.
It's amazing. It's free. There are fountains called Nazzoni everywhere. They're little fountains. A lot of them should have constantly flowing water. Some of them you have to push a button to get water to come out. Around the Colosseum, around a few other places, most of the Colosseum, more famously, there's a water fountain. It's much newer than these old ones that are from...
It almost looks like a big enclosed gazebo.
Yes. And it has water as well as fizzy water. So if you're somebody who likes frizzante instead of a still... Like me. If you like, Darcy likes the frizzante, so we'll wait in the frizzante line. And that is a place you can get frizzante water for free. But the reason I mentioned it as well is just it's if you're basically if you're hot, if you're dehydrated, anything like that, water everywhere. If you're wearing sandals, if you happen to choose sandals that day or flip flops, you'll notice a lot of Romans tend to stick their feet in the streams of water to cool down.
And then not only because they're close to the ground, they're like almost like a fire hydrant level.
Yeah,
would
exactly.
you say? So you can just stick your feet under there. Don't stick your feet in like the one with like the gazebo sort of style one.
That'd be very weird.
That's more of a soda fountain shape.
Yes, that's a really good point. You would look strange.
But yeah, it's a great tip. I wear my Tevas a lot in the summer in Rome, and I just stick my feet under the Nazzone. 10 out of 10.
Water on your neck.
Recommend.
It's super cold water, all fresh, all potable, very drinkable. If you have a water bottle, we recommend like a vacuum sealed one, insulated one, whatever those are called, insulated. Mm-hmm. I mean, we bought one on a whim one. Oh my, game changing. Mm-hmm. For $12 or $15, whatever it was at Decathlon. It's been a game changing water bottle because in the height of summer, it's hot, it's crazy, but the water stays just ice cold. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal.
It really was a game changer.
I'm explaining like insulation to people, but I was just.
We'll put a link to Decathlon is how we say it, but it's Decathlon here. It's a big like sporting goods store. They have great and affordable water bottles, like you're saying. Also, there's a couple in Rome. They're not that centrally located, but one is near Italy. If you happen to want to go to Italy,
absolutely.
So I'll put that in the description. Okay.
Tipping. Yeah.
Yes. Let's do it.
Essentially, we've talked about this before in the longer episode, and I think it's a pretty safe rule. Never tip in Rome. Never tip in Italy, but never tip in Rome. Mm-hmm. You will occasionally hear horror stories or have heard horror stories about somebody's like saying, we went to this touristy restaurant and we were kind of forced to tip. Like sometimes it's somebody saying, it's sometimes a guilt trip, sometimes saying, I'll call the cops if you don't tip. You have to tip us. You have to pay us. It's at least the Italy's travel subreddits. Every week, every 10 days, 12 days, there's another story about somebody who like...
That's crazy.
It is kind of wild. And a lot of people, and a lot of Romans, especially the Rome subreddit, which is in 95% Italian, because people ask even in there, and they're like, please do not tip in Rome. We don't do that. Like if you really want to leave like €1 or something, fine. But the 20% tip is insane. Mm-hmm. So, and again, so we're not anti-tipping in the States. You should tip because that's how we do things. But when you go to Italy, it's all factored in. If it's a whole problem. You're supporting a system here that if you do end up tipping where people aren't actually getting paid, it's a terrible thing. We've explained it in the tipping tap water and toilets episode, but essentially don't tip. Yes. Don't feel the need to tip. If you really want to tip €1 true, leave it on the table. That's fine. Mm-hmm.
And if you were in a situation where someone is forcing you to tip, like in an aggressive and dangerous way, absolutely call the police.
Likewise, if they're threatening to call the police because you're not tipping, you can absolutely call the police.
Yeah, because they cannot force you to tip.
Not to mention, there's a really good chance that the person has employed them illegally, and so that the companies, whoever runs the hotel or the restaurant, is attempting to not pay their workers, and the workers then feel the need to make their money from patrons, basically.
Yeah, something bad is going on if that situation happens to you.
A real restaurant should never ever ask for a tip ever. Mm-hmm. So, and there's been a few times where when we first moved here, we tried to leave a tip, and people were more confused than anything.
Like, oh, you left your money on the table, guys.
It was not. I mean, it wasn't like they wouldn't like chase us down to give it back, but they're just like, "What is that for?" And we're like, "Oh, I don't know. I'm sorry."
Yeah.
So don't tip.
Don't tip.
Safe bet.
I did forget to talk about something in the tap water that we will also link in the description.
Oh my God! Yes, of course.
WaityWow is the app for finding these public drinking fountains in Rome. Super, super helpful.
Worst name in the world. I mean, it's a great name, but like you're not going to stumble across that name.
No, absolutely not. Is it WaityWow? WaityWow.
Weighty. I think it's Weighty.
Okay.
WaityWow.
Okay.
I'm trying to speak like Italian, but there's too many vowels, and you have to pronounce them all because you can't smush vowels together. Uh-huh. So WaityWow. I don't know. Point is, though, it also will tell you if the water is potable or not. And is it just? And I should have mentioned this as well. Italy tends to default to all water is potable unless listed otherwise. Sometimes we've mentioned, I think it's in Naples. The airport there will actually list that their tap water is potable. And it's not saying, this is potable, how amazing. It's saying, we know you assume this isn't, but we want to let you know it is. Mm-hmm. And there are fountains in Rome, especially, that will say, and sometimes it's not that big, sometimes a little brass placard somewhere, acqua non potabile, do not drink, not aqua, water not potable. Mm-hmm. But for instance, Trevi Fountain, don't drink it. It's not potable. Mm-hmm. There's a giant fountain below the Spanish Steps, not drinkable. But weirdly, also attached to the fountain are these two spouts that have drinkable water. Mm-hmm. Super confusing.
It's very confusing, that one.
There's a fountain just across from the Pantheon, not drinkable. Just below the steps from that, though, drinkable water fountain.
Yep.
So sometimes it's confusing because it's part of the fountain is drinkable and part is not. But the Piazza del Popolo has 4 fountains, not drinkable. People dunk their head in there. Don't do it. weird stuff. I don't know. But then around there will be drinkable water fountains. So
and likewise, there's a great street that we really like near Piazza del Popolo, which has a lot of like art galleries and stuff. And I'm sure you've seen it on Instagram if you're looking at Rome things, because people know about it. But it's a sculpture essentially, but also a water fountain, and that water is potable, even though it looks decorative. So just keep in mind that it's sometimes hard to know. Obviously, err on the side of caution, and do look for signs that say if it's not potable.
Absolutely. And I think that's tap water and that's tipping. Toilets, I mean, very, very simply, we've mentioned this before, there are, I guess taking it from the top, there are some public toilets in Rome, like in the sense of public you pay to use, but almost every cafe, bar, et cetera, will have a toilet. So it's easier just to go in, pay for a coffee, and use the bathroom. In a number of cases, we have found that you and I are like, I have to use the bathroom really bad. You go into a bar or cafe or even restaurant, and there's like, go to the bathroom. That's fine. It's right there.
I will say one thing on that is that, I mean, most people will obviously let you use the bathroom. People are usually pretty nice about that. Sometimes the bathroom is like down the street and around the corner and in the basement or something weird. Usually not down the street in the basement, but often in the basement, down a hallway.
Or sometimes in a different building.
Sometimes it's been like, it'll
be like, you have to go next door and you have to go this around the back and up the stairs kind of thing.
Sometimes it's in a weird location. Doesn't mean that you're in an unsafe situation. If you feel unsafe, leave. Find another one.
For sure.
But sometimes it's just that's where the bathroom happens to be.
Absolutely. I love it. It's always like, I want a series of photographs of like the bathrooms of Rome, just like the, because there are kind of these weird jungles every time. Like I'm going to discover something.
It's wild.
And
also, sometimes they don't have toilet seats.
Exactly. That's
something to keep in mind. That's something that you need. Also, no toilet paper. So bring a little tissues along with you. Speaking of street sellers earlier, sometimes people who walk around selling things on the street will sell like lighters and little packs of tissues. Those two things are super helpful sometimes, especially the tissues.
Yeah. I mean, the lighter is probably not useful in the bathroom, to be clear.
No, I'm just saying, like, sometimes you need a lighter.
Oh, okay. I didn't know if it was, like, interesting about Rome bathrooms.
No, sorry. That was confusing. I'm just saying, if you want to buy something from someone who sells something
they do also sell useful things. Yeah.
Yes.
And, so as you mentioned, no toilet seats. So get ready to squat. And then no toilet paper, bring your own. And then oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes no soap. So either bring hand sanitizer, or we actually started walking around with a little, like, Castile soap, like the Dr. Bronner's. That way, if we ever basically like if to use a bathroom and there's no soap, you can wash your hands. Kind of especially important after like being on the metro or the bus or something like that, where you get somewhere and you're like, the hand sanitizer sometimes doesn't feel like it clean to you, just like, oh no. But you can always be, just bring your soap in the bathroom and wash your hands there. Super easy.
Absolutely.
So that is tipping tap water in toilets. We have a whole bigger episode on that if you'd like to listen to it. We just wanted to give you a very brief rundown so you had some pre-information, some information going into this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the very last is heat.
Yes. It's going to be hot this summer.
Yes.
If you're listening to this anytime in the future, it's going to be hot in Rome in the summer. It's getting worse.
Yes. It's not getting better.
It's not getting better. So, like we said, stay hydrated. Unfortunately, you do have to stay out of the fountains. We know y'all know this, but every year there's many tourists who wander into the fountains. You can't take a bath in the fountains. But like we said, you can put your feet under the nazzone on the street to cool yourself off. If you can, like, bring a bandana or a hat that can get wet, that's great to wet those and then put them on your neck or your head. There's not a lot of shade in Rome. There are some gardens, like the Villa Borghese gardens have some shade, obviously. But if you're in, like, the Roman Forum or the Colosseum or Trastevere, a lot of the places where tourists are going to want to be, there are very few trees.
Yes. And there might be shade from buildings, but it doesn't do nearly the same thing.
And it's humid. And we come from Savannah, Georgia, where it is hot and humid in the summertime. But there's also a lot of shade. Not that it always helps with humidity, but it does help. And a lot of air conditioning. And there are definitely shops and places that will have air conditioning in Rome. Your hotel it's becoming much more common, I think, to have air conditioning in hotels, but it's not like you're going to necessarily get into a car or public transportation with air conditioning and hop into a grocery store that's air conditioned just like you would in the States. So just be aware, it's going to be hot. You're just going to be hot.
And on the note of air conditioning, actually, Italy has laws in place on how much lower the AC can go than the outside air temperature. In the States, you can keep your AC on 60 all year round if you wanted to. In Italy, I think it has to be within, it's on like 15 degrees or something, like 18 degrees of the outside air temperature. So if it is 90, it can only be 78. But I think it's closer to like 10 degrees. I can't remember, but it's not that far low. And this also includes a car too. Like there's parts of the times of the year where like they're essentially saying you can't have the AC on a certain temperature because it's a waste. Mm-hmm. And that is something to keep in mind. Your hotel, if you're an Airbnb or something, they will be restricted. Mm-hmm. Just so if you can't really go to complain to the front desk because they're like, I know it's 105 degrees, which means that your AC can only really be on 92. And that is also something to say that, so Rome in the summers are just generally it's hot. It's going to be low to mid 90s on an average summer. The last 5-6 summers have been heat waves, and I think it's pretty much a yearly thing, is my understanding. But they come in July, typically, mid to late July. There'll be a heat wave. There's always a fun name for it. I think Cerberus, Inferno, Hell. They get really creative. Mm-hmm. It's just going like they're just like, how hot do we want to explain this?
And it's horrible. We were there one year. The last year, I think we were in Rome. There was a massive heat wave, and we were trying to record the podcast. And it got to a certain point that neither of us could think straight or form words, which I've heard of happening. But it wasn't like we were in the desert with no water. It was just so hot that our bodies were like not shutting down, but you just couldn't think. Your body was just trying to kind of maintain life.
Yeah, and it's also it's actually quite dangerous, especially if you happen to be staying where we stayed had no AC. It had a fan or two, like a little fan you could put on, but no AC. And if you happen to be staying in an Airbnb or a hotel that AC, one of the most dangerous things is if your body, it's like if it's not under 80 degrees when you're sleeping, your body has a lot of trouble actually like recuperating and the rest
like healing during sleep, like your body has to do.
Exactly. And so or even falling asleep in the first place. And that was, I think, for 3 days it didn't go below 80 at night, and that was a scary thing. I think it was also quite scary. I think Spain was experiencing the same heat wave, Portugal as well, and people were getting really scared because it was like, this is not good. Like if there's this year it's 3 days, and in 10 years it might be 7 or 8 days. It might be, so that is just something to keep in mind. Even if you're from a place, as you mentioned, we're from Savannah, we're very used to heat. We're very used to humidity. It was a different beast, so to speak. We're used to Savannah. We step in any grocery store, any house, anything has air conditioning on, your car, there's trees everywhere. It's a different beat. I mean, in Rome, where it was not everywhere has AC, not everywhere has, the buses technically do, but I mean, come on, you're 50 people on a bus. There's no AC making that cool enough.
And I don't really like air conditioner. I tend to feel kind of sick. It doesn't make me sick, but I tend to feel kind of sick if we're in Savannah and we go from like a 95-degree day into a highly cooled grocery store. Like I get kind of queasy. So I don't love air conditioner, but it is obviously life-saving in certain conditions. And in Rome, it was just, it was almost like untenable. I did not feel well in the absolute heat.
Yeah, so this is, if you're planning on basically coming in July, even early August itself is on a whole other beast in terms of things closing down, but if you're thinking about coming in July, I would do a lot of preparation. I mean, between good walking shoes, prepare to use the Nozzoni to kind of cool down, try to get out of the heat of the day between like 11 or 12 and really 3, maybe try to be in a museum. Again, not all museums are cool, to keep that in mind. Maybe try to be at a catacombs or somewhere, the beach. I have no idea. Just try to, keep in mind that you don't want to be waiting outside in line for the Coliseum at like 1:30 on like July 20th kind of thing. That's just like the worst of the worst of the worst. So that is just to say, if you do have any heat-related issues, always you can go to an emergency room. They being the city and government of Rome, highly encourages you to go to an emergency room. While they do get overrun, and while there can be a wait, especially in the height of summer, especially if people are going with heat stroke or heat exhaustion, they really highly recommend that you go to these emergency rooms. I think there's 5 in Rome itself, all attached to hospitals. There's also some like guarda turistica, which is essentially like a medical center, maybe a clinic for tourists. You can also go there. It's better to use Google Maps and try to figure out where they are, figure out if there's one closer to you. But again, this is just to say, don't mess with the heat. It's something that I think every year people are like, nah, man, I'm used to heat. I'm from a hot place. And then they're just like, I had no idea that it feels like an absolute oven.
Yeah, don't underestimate it.
Absolutely.
You also mentioned 2 things. One, don't underestimate, segue, a good pair of comfortable walking shoes.
Yes.
Every time we're in Rome, especially during big tourist seasons around big tourist areas, you'll see, families and anybody just looking exhausted at the end of the day. And part of that is because, you often push yourself to see all the things you want to see in your vacation.
Absolutely.
But good shoes can absolutely transform your health and your mood. So don't be afraid to wear something that you feel looks dorky. I feel like it's better to feel better, physically.
Yes.
Also, tennis shoes look cute with a sundress. Tennis shoes look great with shorts or whatever you're wearing. Just wear shoes that you know are comfortable. Don't buy shoes right before your trip to try out on your trip. Wear shoes that you know work for you.
Absolutely. We've talked about this, and we have a travel tips episode that essentially has that. And if I may add to it very, very briefly, if you're bringing sneakers and you're going to be out all day, if you're not going to get back to your hotel room, especially in the summer, it's not a bad idea to bring an extra pair of socks. It can help just alleviate a lot of the problems in terms of getting really sweaty and walking and chafing and getting blisters. It's just kind of a game changer. And then second, if you are bringing like sandals, for instance, I often will stick a pair of flip-flops. If I bring like a backpack around with me, I'll wear like Tevas or Birkenstocks and bring a pair of flip-flops with me. I've noticed it helps tremendously when I'm doing a lot of walking in weirdly more sandals than with sneakers. Like sneakers, I'm pretty much comfortable all day, but sometimes sandals after 6 or 7 hours of walking, they start rubbing.
Mm-hmm. I think I'm the opposite though.
Okay. Because then for me, if I switch to a different pair of sandals, then if it rubs in a different spot, I'm good for another 7 hours. And it's kind of like, oh, this is really nice. So that is just, but for you, it would be, I guess, bring a different pair of sneakers,
Well, I do really well when I swap off and on. Like if I wear sneakers one day and then Tevas one day works really well. Sneakers every day for me. I don't know why, but I get blisters. Again, this is not an ad for Tevas, but they are often my go-to. Sometimes they do start to rub, but you can just
loosen them,
Velcro them a little bit, and they're great. Yeah.
So I think that we just wear them because they're waterproof and they're kind of easy to use and easy to slip on and off,
and great for going to the beach.
Great for going to the beach.
Yeah. So
exactly, segue.
In case you're thinking like, oh, Italian beaches are like the best. They are incredible. Neither of us, I think I can speak for both of us, neither of us suggest tacking on a beach trip to nearby when you're in Rome. They're not the prettiest beaches. Ostia and Ostia Antica. Ostia Antica doesn't have a beach, but it is obviously near Ostia. So if you're thinking of going there, you might want to go to the beach. You don't need to. Definitely, if you want to go to an Italian beach, go for it. And like I said, Tevas water shoes are super helpful, but you don't need to bother spending that much time getting to the beach when you're staying in Rome.
Yeah, there are some nice beaches like north and south of Rome. And again, you talk to Romans and they go to the lake in Bracciano. They go to Castel Gondolfo, which is another lake. They go to Anzio, which is a sea. I mean, there's other places to go, but almost very few people go to Ostia. I mean, I'm going to be honest, it's slammed with people.
Oh, for sure.
But when
and it's quite close to Rome.
Yeah, but when you talk to Romans, a lot of them are like, oh God, no, I can't go to Ostia. So it's kind of like it seems like a love-hate thing more than anything else. But if you are and I say this too because a lot of people plan the big three cities, Venice, Florence, Rome, and then they're like, well, Rome's close to the water. I mean, so is Venice, but they're like, we can go swimming there. You really can't. It's not great. It takes an hour and change to get anywhere, more probably to get certain beaches, and then you're just, you're on a train the whole time. So if you're renting a car, it's one thing, but I would not try to stick a beach trip in to your Rome.
I wouldn't do like an ad hoc sort of stick on a little beach day. If you want to go to the beach, highly recommend it, but you might need to specifically plan that as a beach specific vacation.
So don't plan the beach to cool down, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
I like that. The lake though, Bracciano, nice place to cool down.
Yeah, it's lovely.
It is.
Okay. I feel like that was an information-packed episode. Do you have anything else?
I think we pulled it off.
Okay. It was a little over an hour, but it was good.
Oh, we're chatty Cathys. So I think that's everything. If you'd like to leave a review, if you enjoyed listening to this, if you want to hear more of this, if you like our voices, and you'd like to leave a review, you can do so at Apple Podcasts or at Spotify. Likewise, if you have any comments, questions, concerns, questions about things we've talked about, you wanted some more verification, validation, what's the word? Elucidation. You want us to go more in depth. More in depth into something, please let us know, and we're happy to do so. You can reach out on Instagram at onlyabagpodcast or onlyabag.com, where we also have articles. And last but not least, if you'd like to financially support us and help us get new microphones, we would love that. We have a coffee, ko-fi.com/onlyabag, where you can donate to us. And I think that's everything.
Yeah, tanti abbracci.